So I want to say good afternoon or good morning or good evening to all those who have been able to join us for this special webinar. As you may already know, we had the World Day of the Poor, which was called by Pope Francis. So we celebrated that on Sunday. And to mark this particular occasion, Caritas Youth, led by Rebecca Rathbun here at CI, have been animating the entire Confederation and other people of goodwill who want to join us in this to really remember the poor and to see different ways in which we can also serve the poor in our own contexts. So we started on Sunday, and then we conclude this special week of prayer to action on Sunday, the 26th of November, which is the Feast of Christ the King, and also the annual World Youth Day. So as many of you are, maybe you're aware of this already, every year on the Feast of Christ the King, the church celebrates the World Youth Day. But every more or less 2 or 4 years, there's the massive festival, which takes place in a particular city in the world, in which millions of young people around the world, or those who are young in heart, come together to really celebrate, basically, I guess, the faith and to be able to share that with others. So we just had recently in Lisbon the World Youth Day, and the theme for that was Arise and Go with Haste. So this brings us now to the theme of this particular webinar, which is based on the homily of Pope Francis at the Missioning Mass at the World Youth Day in Lisbon, which is to shine, listen, and be unafraid to serve the poor. So now we have this special occasion where we can all gather and really to explore this even further and have testimonies from around the world and around the Caritas Confederation about how we've taken this message to heart and how we want to bring this into our own context and into our own situation and let it animate our own work. So I will begin to introduce the different speakers. And let's see, okay, I can see most people. Do those who are speaking want to turn on their cameras or? Yeah, because I can see Thyra. I can see Christina. Okay. Okay, hello. I can see Isabella now. Okay, so just to start, how we've divided the webinar and to really explore the different themes, to shine, to listen, and to be unafraid. So we have a testimony for each. So for To Shine, we have Thyra Fabe, who's from Caritas Philippines. And Thyra currently holds the position of Administrative Officer at Caritas Philippines, where she plays a pivotal role in overseeing its day-to-day operations. She previously served as the Research and Data Management Officer of Caritas Philippines Academy. Before joining Caritas, Thyra worked with several NGOs, such as Volunteer Service overseas, as researcher for its livelihood programs in Asia. She is currently the youngest member of Caritas Philippines. For To Listen, we will have Rebecca Rathbun, who is from Caritas Internationales here in Rome, but she has also had previous experience with development and peace in Canada. So I've already gone into her bio a bit, but I'll read the official one. So Rebecca Rathbun works for the Caritas Internationalis General Secretariat in Vatican City as our officer promoting youth leadership. She works closely with young people across our whole confederation so that they can participate actively and meaningfully in the global mission of Caritas. She is from Hamilton, Canada, and before coming to Rome, she worked for Caritas Canadian Member Development and Peace for 6 years. She has a Master's of Global Affairs degree from the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. And for the third call, To Be Unafraid, we have Isabella Saleu from Caritas Papua New Guinea. Isabella Saleu is joining us from Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. She works as a communications officer at Caritas Papua New Guinea, and on January 3rd, she will celebrate her one-year anniversary working with Caritas. She is also the co-chair of the Caritas Oceania Youth Alliance, which is the regional forum of young Caritas staff and volunteers in the Oceania region. So we have good representation from around the world. And it will be fantastic to have this opportunity to really talk about the message of Pope Francis and to also to share and exchange ideas about what others are doing in different regions and how if there are ways to also apply those different, I guess those different activities in our own context. So it will be a good information sharing exchange. So yeah, and good testimonies. So just some house rules. For those who are speaking, make sure to switch on your microphone. And then for everyone else, to make sure your microphones are on mute so we can really hear what they have to say. And yeah, I think that's basically it. But anyway, it's going to be a nice informal exchange. So shall we begin? So I would like to introduce first our first speaker, Thyra, who will talk about her experience with Caritas Philippines and more specifically on the verb of to shine, which Pope Francis was talking about. So one part of the homily of Pope Francis at the missioning mass, he said, like, it's important for us to shine. And what does that mean to shine? It's not necessarily being under the spotlight, but being able to be a source of light for others and sort of to be a light that illumines those around us. So he said, friends, I am telling you the truth. Whenever you do works of love, you become light. But the moment you stop loving others and become self-centered, you extinguish your light. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Thyra.
Hello, good evening. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. It's currently 8 o'clock here in the Philippines. So, yeah. So today I'll be sharing a short reflection on one of the points of Pope Francis' homily in the World Youth Day Lisbon, which is to shine. And more specifically on what it means to shine when serving the poor and the vulnerable, especially in the perspective of a Filipino, of someone working in Caritas Philippines. So to start off, I think it's important for us. Most of us here are English speakers, but I would like still to define what it means to shine. And to shine, as defined, is to give out a bright light. And Pope Francis also explained this in his homily using the transfiguration of Jesus and using this line, his face shone like the sun in Matthew 17:2. Now, moving forward, what is shine in the Filipino? What is shine translated to Filipino? And this is actually the backbone of my reflection on this part of Pope Francis' homily. For the Filipino, in Filipino, shine actually is translated to liwanag. And I hope all of you here would take note of this because this is a recurring word in the presentation. Shine is translated to liwanag. And if I were to translate the lion in the Bible, his face shone like the sun, it's going to look like ang kanyang mukha, his face, ay lumiwanag, shone na tila araw. So why am I talking about the definition of shine when it's something that is already understood by most English speakers here? And that is because liwanag, the Filipino translation of shine, is a very special word for us. It is multi-layered and it is also used for other things. Things other than to give out a bright light. Actually, when this word was assigned to me by Rebecca a few days ago, I was very happy because this is a word that we often use, especially when it's about to be Advent. This is the word that is often the central of homilies in the churches. So moving forward, liwanag is a very special Filipino word because it doesn't only mean to give out a bright light, but it is also a root word for the Filipino translation of the words explanation or clarification, which is paliwanag. So when you talk about shining, it doesn't mean just to give out light. It also means to explain and to clarify. If so, by any chance, any of you goes to the Philippines and you want to ask someone to explain something, you will ask them, "Pakipaliwanag nga." Or if you want to ask someone, a Filipino, if they understand what you're talking about, You can just ask, maliwanag ba? Also in the Philippines, if someone were to ask you if you understand something, you can simply answer na maliwanag. Direct translation of it is it shines, but no, not really. It just means that you understood. So, for us Filipinos, for us in the Caritas Philippines in particular, to shine is not just to give out a bright light, like how Pope Francis used it in his homily, but it also means to explain, to clarify, and more than anything else, to understand and be understood. So, why am I talking about this, and how is it related or tangential to the homily in the World Youth Day in Lisbon, and how is this going to be important to us as the youth of Caritas? So, I think it was mentioned by a moderator earlier, this part of Pope Francis' homily, but he reminded all the participants of the World Youth Day to shine. And when you shine, you do not radiate light by putting yourself in the spotlight, because that is the kind of light that is blinding. But you will shine by welcoming Jesus into your hearts and then learning to love as he does. If I were to summarize that, simply put, he's telling us that we can only shine when we love. And for us Filipinos, we would like to put a little something in between shining and love, and that is going back to the translation earlier, it is understanding or pagliliwanag. Because this is the universal truth in all things, that really cannot love what we do not understand. And we cannot say that we love our brothers and sisters in need if we do not really understand them, their context, their realities, their plights, and their challenges. So for us, in our context in the Philippines, to shine is to understand, because to understand is our way of loving. And so how do we operationalize understanding as shining? Because it's very easy for us to say that we understand the plights of our brothers and sisters in need. It's easy to understand that we understand. It's easy to say that we understand things. Actually, we always say that we already understand something because we do not want to engage in a dialogue anymore. We want to end the discussion there. But as the youth of Caritas, how do we really show that we understand our brothers and sisters? And how can we love our brothers and sisters in need? So going back, at least for Caritas Philippines, understanding is an integral part of our operations. So we would like to share to you how we do this in our organization. First and foremost, for in Caritas Philippines, we always go to the ground in order to understand and to listen to the problems and needs of the communities. So this is not just the project officers, the finance officers, or the other staff in the organization, but even our executive director, our bishop, and even in the top management, we make sure that they will always go to the ground in order to listen and to understand what is happening in our partner communities, what is happening to our brothers and sisters. And this is not something that we do just for the sake of photo op or documentation, or what Pope Francis said as spotlight. We really go there because we want to know what really happens on the ground. And this is something that can be seen in one of our flagship programs, which we call the accompaniment program. So this is a visit to all 86 dioceses in the Philippines in order to listen and understand their current situation, and in order to identify how Caritas can be of help to them. So the Philippines currently has 86 dioceses. That includes the diocese in the military. And the Philippines is an archipelagic country, archipelago. So the Caritas Philippines team, which includes the head, which includes the president, really make an effort to visit all of them, not them to come to us, in order to initiate discussions and to hear what is their current situation, what are their problems internally as an organization, and externally in the communities. For example, when it comes to good governance, when it comes to ecology, when it comes to politics or drug use, so that Caritas can also identify how we can be of help to them. So our accompaniment program is our way of understanding, and it is our way of expressing solidarity with our brothers and sisters in need here in the Philippines. And we would like also to highlight that this program started during the pandemic, when there were restrictions and people felt that they were as isolated, especially the dioceses in the far-flung areas. Because again, we have 86 dioceses in the country, and not all of them get to receive some support from the national office. So they would like to, the accompaniment program allowed them to have a voice and give them the chance to to share also to us and for us to understand what are their needs and problems. So just a little data on the companionment program. This is actually a little outdated, but as of 2023, we were able to visit 69 dioceses and then provide mentoring programs in 40, in more than 4 already. And then we were also able to provide financial support to them when it comes to good governance, to ecology, and even organizational needs. Second, we operationalize understanding in Caritas Philippines by always involving our brothers and sisters in need in the designing of our programs and projects that benefit them. And we call this the co-development process. So just simply put, our communities are already involved before we make the proposal and until the implementation of our projects. So in the co-development process, our communities get to define their situations and needs, and eventually they get to implement the projects. This way, our brothers and sisters in need can give us a deeper understanding of their individual context, and then it also gives them a sense of ownership, especially during the implementation stage, since they're already the implementers of it. So we believe that giving them a sense of ownership is one of the best ways to show love to them, because our brothers and sisters in need, they also, of course, they lack a lot of things in life. But if they feel that the project is their own, at least in one of the aspects in their lives, they have a sense of ownership. So this is just some of the photos from the co-development process that we do. This is for one of our biggest projects at present, which is the Bamboo Forest Project, which aims to build bamboo forests in all 86 dioceses. So we visited some of the dioceses where the communities were able to share their problems, what were the issues on ecology, like illegal logging, charcoal making, and then we incorporated this in the proposal of our in the proposal that we submitted to our funder. So in everything that we do in Caritas Philippines, we always involve our brothers and sisters. And in that way, we get to understand their contexts, and we also let them shine in the interventions that hopefully address their issues or challenges. And in that way, our communities do not feel that they are alone in their plight. They do not feel isolated. That we are with them and we deeply understand them. So that is what it means for us in the Philippines, in Caritas Philippines, to shine when serving the poor and the vulnerable. To shine is to understand them. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Thyra, for sharing that. That was fantastic. I really, really appreciated how you go even back to the definition of a word and how language is important in that, and how to be a bright light for others wasn't just about having the light for yourself, but being able to share that light with other people. And it provides that sense of clarity and that understanding. So first, to shine, it brings light, but then you don't keep that light to yourself. And that seems to be very evident in the programs that you've just described. Because while you try to understand what the situation of those who are really in need and what's poor, again, the light becomes a lot brighter. So that sense of really understanding and letting others feel that they're understood, but not leaving it there, but then passing it on so that they also have a sense of ownership of where they're going to direct their own lives and destinies and where they're going to serve others in the community. So it's fantastic what you said. To shine isn't just to keep the light or to be the light yourself, but to pass that light on to others and to let others shine. And again, then the light becomes a lot bigger. So thank you so much for that. And it's, again, a very good lead into the next verb that Pope Francis spoke about, which is to listen. So already, Thyra, you had touched upon that. And then Rebecca will expand on this particular verb that Pope Francis wanted us to really take with us beyond World Youth Day and to go into our own communities, but what it means to really listen. So part of the homily that Pope Francis, part of the homily, I'll just read it to you. So he said, take the Gospels and read there what Jesus is saying. What he is saying to your heart. He shows us the way of love. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Rebecca Rathbun, who is the CI Officer promoting youth leadership. Caritas.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to come together as part of this great program where we have a chance to learn from each other. So I'm very happy that you're all here and that I can be here with you. Like Christina mentioned in my bio earlier, I do work here in Rome at the Caritas Internationalis Secretariat, but before this, I spent 6 happy years working for Caritas's Canadian member, Development and Peace, DNP, as we're affectionately known and how I'll shorten it from now on, as an animator, both in Atlantic Canada and in Southwestern Ontario. And it's actually this experience that I'd like to share with you today in this webinar. I'm still a proud Development and Peace member in my home diocese of Hamilton, Ontario. So today I'm speaking to you in this capacity, both to lift up the incredibly important work that our Caritas members do to serve the poor every single day all around the world, but also because it's the place where I truly learned the value of Pope Francis's second call to action for young people at World Youth Day in Lisbon, which is to listen. So, what does it mean to listen? To me, anyway. To me, it means taking the time to truly encounter others, to genuinely focus on what they tell us, with their words and with their actions, and to value their lives and their experiences as they are, not as we might prefer them to be. It means not focusing immediately on how we might respond to what they're telling us, without first taking the time to carefully consider what they're communicating with us. It means honoring people's lived experience and truly valuing their sharing. And why is this so important to Caritas's work, especially when we talk about our core mission of serving the poor and the most vulnerable? It's because those living in poverty, whom we serve, know the type of realities that they face the best, and the type of support that they need in order to address the challenges that they face the best. What would I know as a person living in Canada or Rome about what it's like to live in poverty in a community on the other side of the world? Nothing to not much. I might read articles and testimonies and see pictures and videos on the news, but that doesn't mean that I know what it's like to live in those conditions. So if I wanted to do something to serve them, to serve these people, who would be the first person to ask, or who would be the best person to ask for direction? Well, if we truly consider the value of listening as a way to shape our own understandings and actions that can affect other people's lives, then the answer would be to ask someone who experiences poverty in that community firsthand. And then, and this is the important part, to truly listen to what they tell me. Not just to ask and to hear, but to truly listen. And then, if I plan to engage with my own actions, I have to use that sharing as my starting point, not my preconceived biases or the images that I've seen on my screens or what works well in my own life, but their personal testimony that they were so generous to share with me. To bring this back to Pope Francis's homily at World Youth Day in Lisbon, I'd like to share a particular quote that stands out to me in the part where he encourages young people to listen. He says, "Listen to Jesus. Otherwise, even if we set out with good intentions, along paths that seem to be of love, in the end, those paths will be seen as selfishness disguised as love. Be careful of selfishness disguised as love. Listen to Jesus, for he will show you which paths are those of love. Listen to him." It was Jesus who preached to us the importance of encounter and closeness to the most vulnerable, and in particular to the poor. And so, if we're to take Pope Francis's advice to listen to Jesus, then it means encountering and listening to those who are vulnerable and who experience poverty in all of its forms in all parts of the world. Because Jesus called us to be close to the poor, to the sick, to the homeless, to the hungry. And being close to someone means to truly value them and to be enriched and maybe even evangelized by the wisdom that they hold. If we approach serving the poor by leading with our own personal ideas and opinions, for example, I have a TV and I love it, so everyone should have a TV. So my act of kindness is to buy this person a TV. Then we're only projecting our own lives and opinions onto others to transform them into us, rather than valuing and supporting them to transform into their true, authentic selves, which is a lifelong journey. What if someone doesn't want this TV or can't use one or needs something else way more? This is why encountering the poor and listening to them is truly an act of love, because it allows us to honor and support each person in their own unique image and likeness of God. So coming back to my time at Development and Peace, an initiative that they organize regularly that really taught me the value of listening and shaped the way that I think about it is when they invite people from our partners in the Global South to come to Canada, to speak to people and to give a personal testimony about their lives. These are called solidarity visitors because their coming helps us to build solidarity between our members in Canada and our partners all around the world. And what do we ask our members and the general public to do in return? To listen. Because again, DMP's public can read about our partners' work on our website and in our materials, but it's a completely different experience to have a real person in front of you, telling you what it's like to live in a community that's struggling and facing difficulties and injustices. And we know, and I can tell you this because I've seen it myself, that having this personal encounter of sharing on the one hand and of listening on the other is truly a transformative experience for many people. When Development and Peace invites these solidarity visitors to Canada, usually they come to a couple of regions of the country at a time, and there they'll meet with members, speak at parishes and schools, meet with bishops and members of parliament, and speak at public events. In my time as an animator, I had the absolute pleasure to accompany 4 solidarity visitors in the regions where I worked. I accompanied Naham Tarhini from DMP's partner Adyan in Lebanon, and Tor Yarapu from our Nigerian partner Yarak throughout Atlantic Canada. And I also accompanied Isaac Oswoka and Victoria Philibus from another one of DMP's Nigerian partners, Social Action, around southwestern Ontario. So I also had the pleasure of spending long hours in the car, chatting away with them about our lives and our experiences. And personally, those car rides are some of my most memorable experiences from those times, because we were able to forge genuine connections and friendships by listening with each other. And we would always have a bit of fun as well, as they became acquainted with our Canadian culture and especially weather. Often these visitors come during our Lenten campaign, which means it's smack in the middle of our Canadian winters, which, if you come from a warm country, is an experience to say the least. We also organize solidarity visits where Canadians can actually go and visit our partners in their home context. But really, it's the solidarity visitors that come to Canada that can reach the most people. Encountering and listening to these amazing people who came to Canada from our partners and gave their personal testimony showed me the value of how much I can learn from listening to others and encountering others who live in a totally different reality than me. And honestly, these experiences were very formative for me, and to this day, they really shape the way that I view the social and ecological justice issues around me every day. So I'm really, really grateful for each of DMP's solidarity visitors that I've encountered over the years. And I'm very grateful to Development and Peace for regularly creating opportunities for myself and our members across the country to have these encounters with our partners and with the people whom they serve. So to conclude, I can give my own personal testimony about the transformative power of listening, and especially listening to those who live in different social, economic, political, you name it, realities than myself. And I feel that this has truly enriched my understanding of the world around me and made me better equipped to contribute to the mission of Caritas even in my work today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. That was fantastic to be able to hear about the initiatives that you've been able to be part of through Caritas or DNP. I'll call it DNP from now on. We're all friends now, so I can affectionately call them DNP now. Thank you. But I have to say, what really stood out for me was the word encounter and what that actually means, because you can always come in close proximity with people. It happens in any place or any time. We can always basically cross paths with others, but what we can see with the work that you were able to be part of was that you had spaces and you created spaces where genuine encounters could take place. So through the solidarity visitors and being able to bring someone into your world. But then also it was an exchange as well. So you would have solidarity visits. So you have people from your own country who get to go there, and having that genuine opportunity to see, okay, what is the state of the world around me, or being able to listen, because again, it was through the listening that you can discover what the needs actually are, and to also to accept people as they are and where they're at. So really using your ears quite a lot, and then first using that space of being quiet to then take action later on. And that's really important. And it's true, especially now in a culture where everything is so instant and instantaneous. We forget that important part of listening, where it's not just listening to hear, but listening to understand, and then also not just to ask, basically. I think that was a very important part, where you're asking what's needed, not listening to hear and here I have a solution. So thank you for sharing that. And again, it takes a lot of courage to listen. So this again very easily brings us to the third verb that Pope Francis spoke about, which is to be unafraid. So I would like to give the floor to Isabella to talk about her experiences with Caritas in Oceania and Papua New Guinea, to look at what does it mean, or how can we live Pope Francis's call to be unafraid when it comes to encountering the poor. How does that look? Basically, what would that look like in your situation, and how can we learn from each other about how to be unafraid? So again, going back to the homily of Pope Francis in Lisbon, he said, as young people, you want to change the world, and it is very good that you want to change the world. You want to work for justice and peace. You devote all your life's energy and creativity to this. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Isabella. Okay, I think you can unmute your mic and then we can continue. Okay.
Okay. Okay. It's okay now? Yes. Okay. So how can I be unafraid to serve the poor? Usually when the topic comes to mind, a lot of people think that it's something to do with lacking the basic necessities in life, and I think that's also true in a way. So the Oxford Language Dictionary describes being poor as lacking sufficient money to live at a standard considered comfortable or normal in a society. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, one of the Beatitudes, it says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So I think that in order to be a full person, there is something that we have to lack. And as Christians, I think that Pope Francis also says that, okay, sorry, I am, okay, yeah. So as Christians, we're also encouraged to actually discover our sins, and yeah, sorry. So that's what it means to be poor in spirit. So in the message of Pope Francis, the Pope Francis message um, for World Day of the Poor, he spoke on actually on 9 points, if I'm correct. But I picked out in the fourth point, that is, it was quite a long text and everything. But from what I understood was not to just pray but to act. So it says, we're living in times that are not particularly sensitive to the needs of the poor. And then it is easy to delegate charity to others, yet the calling of every Christian is to become personally involved. So many times, say, in our work as here in Caritas, sorry, I'm just jumping. Yeah. So not to pray, but not to just pray, but to act, with the topic as do not turn your face away from anyone who is poor. Now, while I work in Caritas, I summed it up in just three things that we actually do. So that is to respond to emergencies, promote development, and advocate for a peaceful, fair, and just world, which these are some pictures from some of the work that Caritas Papua New Guinea does. Then it comes back to what should we see poverty as and how should we address it? Now, these are in the words of Pope Francis, he says that we're not an NGO as a church. And when the church becomes an NGO, she loses salt, has no flavor, and is only an empty organization. It is one thing to preach Jesus and another to be efficient. Now, back to the work that we do. Yes, we respond to natural disasters, emergencies. We promote development in communities and society. We advocate for a peaceful, fair, and a just world. And these are ways that we help, not necessarily, we could say that people that are poor, but people that actually need our help in certain areas with materialistic things. But then the whole idea here is that if we actually don't know what we're doing, or if we don't have a source that whatever we do or whatever we help or how we help other people, then there's really no, probably say, no meaning or purpose to the work that we do. Now, coming from a society where peer pressure is really something that still exists, where as a young person, if say if you wanted to do something good, say that is to help the poor or do something good, there's always this pressure of people, your other friends telling you if you're just trying to show off or you're trying to get attention and all that. So then it makes a young person like me in my society be afraid. So I can't really go out there and help people because I'm afraid that my friends may say something to me or, make fun of me or something like that. So now back to Pope Francis's message on World Youth Day, to not be to be unafraid. He says that I tell you something very beautiful. It is no longer me, it is Jesus himself who's looking at you in this moment. He is looking at you. He knows you, he knows the heart of each one of you, he knows the life of each one of you, he knows the joys, he knows the sadness, the successes, and the failures. So for a young person here, it's really difficult to actually do something good without having someone say something about you. So that has like put a lot of fear in a lot of young people where we don't try to take part in things that are happening. So for the work of Caritas, it's actually, for those of us who have this standing or these platforms. For example, I work with Caritas, so I have the platform to help, and I also have the opportunities to actually help. But for those who don't have that, and they're just individuals and they want to help but they cannot because of this. For me, like if I do something, they don't actually say, "Oh, that's like, oh, that's Isabella doing something." It's actually, "Oh, that's Caritas." So it's actually easier to do that. But then when Caritas is taken away from you and you're just an individual, then that's where all the fear comes in. That should I do this or should I not do this? When it's actually good, or when you want to help but you can't because you're just an individual person now. So how do you not probably give in to that or to listen to that, to be unafraid? So I think with all that, having said that, there's just two things that I like to say: to not be afraid. Two things. So to be seen serving the poor, and to love. So even if we're like afraid or ashamed to do something like that, we can always go back to the message of Pope Francis that yeah, we can always go back to the message of Pope Francis that we are also young people or people, individuals that are blessed with something that another person doesn't have. So regardless of someone being poor, say, like I said, like I explained what a what it means to be poor. There can be two situations: someone that lacks materialistic things like basic necessities of life, and someone that is poor in spirit, in the spiritual aspect. And each of us is blessed with something that can be of blessing to someone else. And if we don't actually, if we're all confined to ourselves, and if we're afraid to go out and share that with someone, then we make them, that poor situation that they have, so to speak, it continues because we're afraid to go out. So just to sum up everything, I think to not be afraid to be seen serving the poor, maybe giving something, food to someone that doesn't have any, or sheltering someone, or any way that we can help, or even just listening to someone, or yeah, to be serving the poor. And also the next one is to be not afraid to love. So why this why I put the next one down is because most of the times when we do something like the work that we do, right, we can say that we're Caritas or we're Christians and we're Catholics and we do all that, but do we really do it because we're getting paid to do it, or do we really do it because this is what we do, we are asked to do as Christians? This is what Jesus did when he lived on this earth, and this is what we're following as Christians, as people who follow Christ. Because you can't do well what you do not love, and you can't love um, something that you do not want to do. So even if in all the work that we do as Caritas, as Catholics, as Christians, regardless, if there is no love in that, then I don't think it has any meaning, or it has any purpose or any standing, and it wouldn't mean anything to the person that's receiving, especially if we're here in the service of those who need, the poor, the marginalized. Yeah. So if there is no love, I don't think there is. So to be not afraid to be seen serving the poor, and be not afraid to also love what you're doing in the service to the poor. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Um, I really found that what you had to say very inspiring, because I liked particularly how you emphasized the fact that to be unafraid um, doesn't just mean to go out and do something, maybe to meet someone's basic needs, or you know give someone food or give someone support, but it also means to be unafraid to see our own vulnerabilities, or where we're also lacking. And I think you highlighted that very clearly in what you've shared with us today, that you know we have to be unafraid um, to know that we ourselves, or each person, we lack something, and that's always a good starting point as well, to then also be unafraid to go meet other people and to see where they're at, and to be able to give of ourselves. So I think that was a very good point that you were able to highlight. And especially, like you said, like one of the beatitudes that Jesus brought forward was that, blessed be the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So again, being able to acknowledge our own poverty also helps us to, and yeah, being unafraid to acknowledge that also helps us to be unafraid in giving to others. And it was nice to hear how you said that, Caritas for you has been really a fantastic platform where you don't feel alone. And it's important as well, because sometimes, yeah, we can feel afraid as an individual, or we don't want to stand out because other people are going to look at us and judge us. But you were able to say that with your work through Caritas, you've had a platform where you could go out, and then you have other people who support you in that work. So I think that was really great, and I think that was a really beautiful way to wind up these three verbs, or these challenging verbs of Pope Francis, which were to shine, to listen, and to be unafraid. So as we are getting closer to the end of our workshop, we're going to have a bit of a sharing, so all of us, so we can really think about the different ideas that we've been able to share and to hear from others. and maybe do a group discussion together for about 10 minutes or so before we close out. I'm sorry, does anyone have any questions for each of the panelists more specifically? We'll be very open. Okay, so since we're fairly intimate, this group, and there doesn't seem to be too many questions, so Rebecca will share her screen just to get the discussions going. And so we can have a read and think about it, and then we'll all bring our ideas to the table.
Nobody likes to go first, so maybe I'll go first. I know it was a panelist, but just to get the discussion going, what we'd like for us to consider now, because we're all coming from different member organizations, is how we can maybe apply what we've heard today in the three panel discussions in our own work today. For example, I've learned something from each of my fellow panelists, Thyra and Isabella. You each made really, really good points. Thyra, I love how you were talking about, using culture and the culture in your community to shape your understanding of how to shine and be a light for other people. And so, I was starting to think of maybe as a Canadian, what are certain Canadian things that I can do to enhance my work. And help to it's a way of sharing, and I really like that. So from yours, I took that. And Isabella, I really loved what you said about not being afraid to love, because loving is it opens you up, makes you vulnerable, and I think that that's something that I can work on as well in all of the work that I do. So thank you to the both of you for sharing that. And if anyone else would like to share, just go ahead and unmute yourself. We're a small informal group, so please do go ahead.
I might have one personal input. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Okay. I see your, the thumbs up. I was thinking of it just today. I'll also, thank you all for sharing all your interesting presentations. It was very inspiring for me as well. And before I joined this webinar, I was at lunch with my colleagues just like hour and a half ago, and I had this in my mind that I was going to join this webinar, and there was this woman who was cleaning all the stuff from in the canteen, in the public canteen, and I had this instant idea that I should just thank her for her work, and to kind of bring this, to be that shine, and for some reason, and now I'm getting to this third part of the phrase, to be unafraid. I was afraid of saying it. I just don't know why, and I was like, why didn't you say it? So I didn't do it, and I realized that quite often I'm afraid of being seen by other people. And I'm afraid of what people will think when I do something like this, which is not so common in my society, in the society where I live in, which is Czech Republic. So the message I take from this is focus on that last part, to be unafraid, to be seen by others, and kind of stand out from the crowd. So thanks all for sharing this, and I take this with me as a message for my personal life for the future.
Oh, thanks, Tina. I mean, that was an example of where we really do come across in our everyday lives, actually, the poor, but are our eyes open to seeing that? And we've especially had since Sunday with the World Day of the Poor, and we have up until, well, you can always extend it beyond this special week. But with the celebration of World Youth Day on Sunday, but really taking advantage of this particular time, all of us, but then also as a confederation and with Caritas and the work that we do with Caritas, to look at ways that, like, yeah, okay, how can we really take the call of Pope Francis wherever we are and in different moments, and to really live this call. Rebecca will also share, because as you may already know, if you can see the screen, we have the program. So there are a number of resources that are available on the website, but also on social media. So in case you or your friends don't already follow Caritas Youth on Instagram, please do so. That's where you can get quite a few of the updates, as well as the website. So as you can see, you can go to the website, which is www.caritas.org/prayeraction2023. Or you can follow on social media, particularly Instagram, for more things. But yeah, also just do feel free to share any experiences or any stories that you do come across. You have Rebecca's contact, but even on social media, share things. It's good to just, in a way, exchange these different ideas, especially in the lead up. If you haven't already been following with the daily prayers that we have for each day, and the See, Judge, Act prompts, which might be able to help us with our own work in our different countries. But then also we have a special examine, which is going to be an audio, like a mini podcast, and that can give us some ideas, and we can feel free to share that with others as well, because it can get us to every person to reflect a little bit more on how to really shine, to listen, and to be unafraid in serving the poor, and bringing it beyond even just this particular week. So yeah, I'd like to thank all of you, all of the speakers, and for all of you who've come together to share what you've had to say. So thank you very much. A really big thank you. I can give you a virtual hug from Rome. That's all I can offer. But anyway. Okay. Oh yes. And also for each of the panelists, do you have maybe, like, just so we can wrap it up really nicely and make it very strong? So Thyra, for To Shine, do you have any, like, maybe a final word, like any final words that you really want to drive home before the end of the workshop? I think you're muted at the moment, so.
I think I'll point out the thesis of my presentation earlier, and that is that really cannot love what we do not understand, and really cannot say that we love our brothers and sisters in need if we do not try to understand them, their context, their realities, and their plights. So I'm just going to highlight again that in order to shine, we have to understand. And when we understand, that is when we start to love our neighbors the way Jesus loved them. That's it.
Oh, thank you. Beautiful. And Rebecca.
Thanks, Christina. I would say what I found quite interesting after hearing Thyra and Isabella's testimonies is how connected these three actions are, and how many similarities there were between the things that we shared. So to me, this shows that we can have the biggest and fullest impact if we try to do all three at once, rather than just trying to pick one and do that. So, for example, we can't truly listen if we're not shining and if we're afraid. So my call, maybe I could say, for all of us is to try to apply all three of these in our actions that we do to serve the poor, either with Caritas or outside. But I think that what I'm taking away from this is that with all three working together, we can have the biggest impact.
Okay, thank you very much. And then last but not least, Isabella.
Okay, I'm talking very calmly now because I'm not nervous anymore. I'm sorry. I was so nervous the first round. Anyway, just to close off, I think it's actually normal to be afraid of doing things, and that's it's part of being human. But if we really love something, if we really want to do something, I think that doesn't count anymore. So in order to do something good, really get out there and do something in terms of serving the poor, we have to really search ourselves and know if this is what we want to do, and to really, understand. And once we know that it's what we want to do, then, because you want to do it, that's, you love what you want to do, and then being afraid or being ashamed doesn't come to mind, and you just go ahead and you do it. So I think, yeah, I think I would say that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful because, like, it's true actually. It's interesting, but yeah, to love. We have to, if we're really passionate about something, and I've been able to see a lot of the passion, or like today, and in all the activities and the work that you're all doing. But like when you love, you're not afraid, and at the same time, when you're not afraid, you're more easily able to love others. And even actually, it's in the New Testament, so it's in one of the letters. I think it's Timothy, but he says like, perfect love drives out fear. And again, part of Caritas, everybody knows what Caritas means, I hope. Caritas is really love. So I mean, it's very clear from this workshop, being able to shine, to listen, to be unafraid. Really, essentially, it boils down to being able to love, and also in turn letting others love us. So that's very important. I think we can really go home. Well, some of you are already at home, but to really think about that and to live it. And it's like you said, Isabella, it's not just about, you're just praying, but the point of also this week is to go from prayer to action. It's not just words. It has to take, it has to take action. If we believe something, we do something. So I think, yeah, we've had some really good ideas, and we can think about it more. And we'll say a prayer for today. So if you hadn't already been following, each day there's been a prayer that's been written by someone from the Confederation, or different parts of the Confederation. And so today is a prayer that was written by Caritas Lebanon Youth. And this will be our concluding prayer for the workshop. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Our main mission in Caritas revolves around supporting those in need. When we speak of the poor, we refer not only to those who lack food or shelter, but also to those suffering silently within. We lift our hearts in prayer for all the lonely, the unfortunate, and the uncomfortable, who feel that their paths are blocked. May they find companions who can recognize the presence of Christ deep within their souls and discover inner joy and peace. May they encounter Jesus with open hearts. We also acknowledge the challenging economic conditions in our country. While many are working and earning incomes, we continue to hear pleas for assistance due to insufficient access to food and medicine. We pray for safety in our nations during these trying times. Lord, grant us patience, strength, and an increase in faith and hope. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And we will conclude, but if, no, Rebecca has no further words, because, we're here to listen as well, but that's the conclusion of the workshop. And again, thank you so much for making the time to really prepare and to share the work that you do with Caritas. And hopefully all together, we can work together and support each other in being able to serve the poor and to serve them well. So thank you very much. So again, good afternoon or good morning or good evening to all of you who are tuning in. And until next time, so goodbye.